What's up, everybody? Welcome into Shout, a Buffalo football podcast. Matt Parrino here with Ryan Talbot. It is Monday, January 5th, 8:30. A little Monday show for you. A lot of news this afternoon. We thought we'd go live, check in as we kind of get set for a very busy week. Ryan Talbot, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. Yeah, plenty to talk about after the presser today with Sean McDermott in terms of these injury updates that we have in the headline.
So I guess the best place to start is with Maxwell Hairston. And I was not prepared for how much anger there was in the fan base about Hairston playing in the fourth quarter. And I guess I could see it from both sides. I think that I understand the frustration with a guy that's obviously ascending in Hairston, a young player that you drafted specifically for a matchup like this, right? Against a team with a couple of really good wide receivers, to not have him available and lose him in a game where he's playing in basic garbage time is frustrating. I get that on its, that has merit to it. I do think that despite the numbers game, which we're going to get to in a second from Sean McDermott, I think Maxwell Hairston probably needed reps, probably continues to need reps. And so I didn't have a huge problem with him being in this game, playing in this game, and maybe playing the entire game, even if they had Jamarcus Ingram still here. But that is the big issue, right? Like you don't have Jamarcus Ingram because you tried to sign Darius Slay, and we've gone around and around about that. I liked the aggressive move by Brandon Beane in the moment. It didn't work out. You lost Jamarcus Ingram. He's been active for the last 3 games for the Houston Texans. He played in a pretty meaningless game for the Texans this last week. Played I think it was 39 snaps, which good for Jamarcus Ingram. Horns up. We're big Jamarcus Ingram fans on this podcast, but Maxwell Hairston suffers this ankle injury, and now he's going to be out. Sean McDermott deemed it a week-to-week injury. And not only is this week in question, but if the Bills advance, you start to wonder if he'd be available for a divisional round game. And so I get the frustration. Sean basically alluded today, Ryan, to the fact that Cam Lewis, if you remember in the game, went out with an ankle injury. So I think there were serious concerns about the numbers overall at cornerback, because if Cam Lewis is still in the game and is playing in the slot, maybe you can somehow navigate, Jordan Hancock playing on the outside or Darnell Savage playing on the outside, and maybe bringing back in Cole Bishop. And even then, do you want to risk Cole Bishop in a game like this? It felt like the Bills just didn't have enough numbers, and hindsight being 2020, maybe you don't dress Keontae Jenkins and you bring up Dane Jackson. But I don't know. I think that's it's getting a little bit nitpicky there, I think.
It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, because it's funny. Different position, different player. But you know what I saw last night all over social media? Why didn't the Bills give James Cook more than 2 carries? Everyone was freaking out and worrying that Derrick Henry was going to win the rushing title after he gets out to 112 rushing yards in the first half. And this guy's going to take the rushing title away from James Cook because the Bills only gave him 2 carries. Should have given him more. If James Cook had been out there for the first full drive and just anything happened, even if it was a minor injury, I could not imagine what the reactions would have been like in terms of what was McDermott doing? What was he thinking? Some people just aren't going to be happy no matter what, because I agree. There is merit to why are you having Hairston out there in a 35-0 game at that point in time. But what you said earlier also makes a lot of sense. This is a player that missed a ton of time in his rookie year due to an injury, and you want to get him as many reps as possible going into the playoffs. You can't predict injuries. You don't know when they're going to happen. It was just kind of a fluky deal. Stuff like that happens, but it's just one of those things where no matter what Sean McDermott does or whatever this coaching staff does, there's always going to be someone that is against what the decision was in that moment. And I understand the anger, the depth. We've talked about this at cornerback, the issues that they've had the last few years. Benford going out in the championship game, White's injury history. What happens if one of them goes down? Then you're really in trouble. I get all of that, but the Bills were just doing what they thought was best in that moment to get reps for a rookie who needed those reps.
Pops Mafia, great comment here. Dane Jackson didn't have any call-ups, so the Bills would literally have had to put him on the active roster and make a release. And I think you probably could have gotten away with maybe a Kalecki Latu. But the problem there is, Ryan, like you bring in Dalton Kincaid in this game and you don't want to play him a ton. Um, Sean McDermott brought up the idea of maybe playing a wide receiver at cornerback, and he also brought up the safety issue there. I mean, that's a position that these guys aren't playing. You're asking that player to kind of do something that's out of their wheelhouse. I remember the Bills did that, I think, at one point with Isaiah McKenzie, right back in the day.
Yeah.
They had him play cornerback for a couple of snaps. Sam Franklin was active. Maybe you could have done something with him, throw him out there on the boundary and just ask, everybody in the fourth quarter to play some kind of shell defense and, prevent defense, whatever you want to have it. That's probably a better case scenario, but I do think that there was a little bit of it's not a great situation. Like I do wonder if, and Steve Tasker asked Sean about this on Friday last week before the game, if the NFL should consider in week 18 when teams are obviously trying to rest certain players and maybe having it be like a secondary preseason where a lot of these, like, the Joe Andreessens of the world and the Ray Davises of the world, not as good of an example. He plays meaningful snaps, but, a chance to audition in a way where you're able to maybe have a couple, even if it's 2 more extra practice squad call-up spots, or maybe you say for a guy in week 18, you still only get 2 call-ups, but Dane Jackson, you can bring him up because you don't want to play a certain player. Like you can kind of, I don't know, finagle that a little bit. There's probably some competitive considerations that have to be made, but I just think like, this seems to be an issue a lot of the times in week 18 where you're forced to play a guy like Osiris Torrance was playing out there. Could you imagine if something happened to him before the playoffs? That would have been a massive storyline.
Yeah, you have him starting and playing, the majority of the game. You have Grable leave at one point and Spencer Brown gets thrown out there. This is just, the nature of the beast right now. And unless or until the NFL changes that rule or comes up with some kind of plan for these meaningless games for a lot of teams in week 18 that were benching starters across the league, then stuff like this can happen. Unfortunately, it's just part of a game where there's a lot of physical play and unfortunately bad things happen.
We got to get to Bobby Babbitt's quote today. And I thought it's the headline of the episode, and I thought it was very, coaches are going to be confident, right? Like, I mean, they're going to have confidence in the players that are available. Guys get hurt, and it's, the mentality across the league, next man up, opportunity for the next guy. But he was asked point blank about Hairston being out, and he was like, we'll be fine. I think that's a lot of confidence, obviously, in CB1, in Christian Benford, but also it's a lot of confidence in Tre'Davious White. And, he's been a great story over the last 48 hours, right? I mean, I wrote about him on the site. I mean, this is my main takeout after this last game at Highmark Stadium is watching Tre'Davious White on the field, shedding tears, watching the montage. I mean, you could feel how much it meant to him to be back in this moment where, rewind the clock 2 years and he was basically released by the Bills after 2 career threatening injuries. And the future was very much unclear, especially after he got released by the Rams after 8 games, 4 of which he was inactive. He goes to Baltimore, plays a very much a role player type of situation there for him. He lands back in Buffalo this year. And we were talking about him after that signing, Ryan, like, hey, man, we might have to get to a place where if he's not having a good training camp, he finds himself on the roster bubble. And now we're sitting here talking about Tre'Davious White in 2026 is an indispensable piece of this defense. And I think is a big reason why in a game like this, against an offense and passing game like this, Bobby Babbitt didn't flinch when asked about it because he believes in Tre'Davious White. And I think that's fair. I think it's fair of him to have that kind of belief because Trey White's played that well over the last month.
Yeah, month and a half at this point. He's been pretty much lights out in terms of his play, being in the right position at all times, covering extremely well, being a great role model for Max Hairston in that regard in terms of exactly what you should be doing. And Hairston, I think, has learned a lot from him this year. So you go from a player where I sat, I'm old take old takes exposing myself here, where I thought maybe at one point Dane Jackson had more left in the tank than Trey White going into this summer, and I was 100% wrong on that. White has really come into his own, played great ball the last month and a half, and a lot of it has to do, obviously, with being in the right system. Players in the right system help them out so much, and he is perfect for Sean McDermott, Bobby Babbich's defense, the way that he plays, the system that they run. And as long as he can stay healthy, as long as Christian Benford can stay healthy, I do agree to a certain extent that they will be just fine without Max Hairston until he can come back. That's the risk, though. You just never know what's going to happen in a game. You're going against a Jacksonville team that can throw the ball all over the place with some really good wide receiver play. So it's going to be an interesting battle, but it sounds like Bobby Babbich, they have a plan in place and they're pretty confident in it.
I'm confident that everybody listening right now should make sure that they take all of the stress out of this weekend and head over to Tops Friendly Markets. It's Monday. You're hosting a big party for the playoffs this weekend. Take all of the worry out of it and let Tops do the cooking for you this weekend. You will be the real MVP with ready-to-serve fan favorites, takeout meals.topsmarkets.com. Head over there. It will elevate your food game with a great selection of custom cakes, desserts, pizzas, sandwiches, fresh fruit, cheese trays, fried chicken, and so much more. It's a 1:00 game, Ryan. I mean, we're going to both be in Jacksonville, Florida, covering a football game. But if you're going to be back in Western New York, no better way to start your game day than with a Tops breakfast pizza. Man, it gives me chills just thinking about it. I love 1:00 games. And I don't know why I didn't think about this sooner. I got to start bringing a breakfast pizza from Tops to the press box for 1:00 games next season at the new stadium. What do you think about that?
I'm not against it. We'll see what the breakfast spread looks like at the new stadium, but you can't go wrong with a Tops breakfast pizza. You call it in, order it fresh to go, bring that thing home, and it is unbelievable. Best in Western New York in terms of breakfast pizza.
If you have something you want us to cover on this episode, we'll be live for about 25 to 30 minutes here today. A lot of content coming your way throughout the week. We'll have BKL Makes You Want to Shout tomorrow with Josh Reed and Carl Jones from Channel 4. Big collaborative effort to start the playoffs that will air on WIVB in Buffalo as well. So if you're local, you can watch that right on your television tomorrow. Let's get to I got one Dane Jackson take before we move on. I think he might have some juice in the playoffs. Oof. Maybe this is a bold prediction. Maybe people are going to be in the comments rolling their eyes. He's got fresh legs. He hasn't played all season. This is a guy that has come off the bench before and given you really quality snaps as a starter in this defense. And has it always gone well for him? Absolutely not, right? Like there's been some playoff moments where it hasn't gone well, but this has been the year. I don't want to call it the reclamation projects because not all of these players are, but I feel like going back to the well has served the Bills so well in so many ways. Jordan Phillips is a good example of that. I think he's been playing some real good ball when he's healthy. Jordan Poyer, where would they be at safety without him? And I think Cole Bischoff, Eric Bischoff, Cole Bischoff.
The WCW talk.
Effect in that room has been huge on the second-year safety. And I just think Dane Jackson as a veteran backup cornerback in case something happens in this game on the road against Jacksonville. I don't know. Call me crazy. I think that you could have a lot worse situations. And I think the Bills had it last year. And no offense to him, but it was Kaiir Elam.
Right. When Dane Jackson, for as much criticism as he receives, has stayed on the practice squad all year long. Buffalo could have easily flipped him out for a younger player or a different player that became available or that they could have worked out throughout the year. And yet Jackson stood the test of time all season long. His legs are fresh. It goes back to what we were just talking about with Trey White and Jordan Poyer. He knows the system. There are certainly reasons to be optimistic that if he has to come in and play, that he can do it in a respectable way where, you're not expecting him to be a lockdown corner like Benford or play at the type of level that Trey White plays at, but maybe he can be a tier or two below that. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. It hasn't been pretty at times this year when he has been elevated and been on the field, but at the same time, I think with cornerbacks, the more run you get, the more snaps you see, the more comfortable you get.
I love all these comments right now. I'm writing them down. Pops Mafia, Dirty Jersey, um, somebody else in here, I scrolled past it. You know the Twitter account, Ryan? It's called Old Takes Exposed. I'm writing
Yeah.
all these names down, and if Dane gets into a game and makes a big play, we will be leading off the Shout podcast with some Old Takes Exposed. So get ready. I wrote them all down. You're in my notebook. There you have it. All right. Before we move on, we're also brought to you by Amtrak. The holiday season is over, but Amtrak has you hooked up the best way to travel. I mean, we're going on a bunch of airplane rides this weekend, Ryan, and you got to get to where you got to get to. I don't know if we can get down to Jacksonville on the Amtrak, although we probably could, and that would probably be an adventure. Get to Amtrak.com. No long lines when you get to the airport. You get to the train station, get right on your ride. Wi-Fi is always free. No baggage fees, and kids ride 50% off. Get over to Amtrak.com. Tell us a little bit about this kicker situation, Ryan. It's a little bit
I mean, potentially some good news when it comes to the kicker
before we get to the kicker, Dirty Jersey. There. He's writing my name down too. So that means that I'm going to get dunked on with the Old Takes Exposed if it doesn't go well. Fair play to you, my friend.
I know, no worries. Yeah, Sean McDermott today at his media session kind of gave some good news in terms of Matt Prater. He said that he is day to day. He noted that there is a possibility he'll be able to kick this weekend against Jacksonville, but the Bills are just going to protect themselves in the event that that is not the case. They're going to bring in some kickers this week, most likely tomorrow. Tuesday is the common day of the week to bring in players for tryouts or workouts. So look for a list of kickers to be brought in. And if one gets signed to the practice squad or in any capacity, it does not mean that Prater is definitely out. This is just the insurance option, because come playoff time, unlimited elevations, they can make a spot there by releasing someone else. So I anticipate the Bills signing a kicker to their practice squad just to get some work this week, but there's a chance Prater can go.
Here's my apocalyptic scenario that I'm fearful of for the Bills. Prater makes it through the week, does enough work to be able to get into the game, but then re-aggravates it in game. And now you're left with a really difficult situation. You can run Ray Davis out there to kick extra points if you feel confident in that. This is a playoff game on the road in Jacksonville. I don't know if you want your backup running back trotting out there to kick extra points, and all respect to Ray Davis. I mean, maybe he'd be up for it. Maybe he'd be confident in it, but that's just not the best case scenario. And listen, if you're in a one game situation, you take Josh Allen, right? You got to go for it on fourth down. Fine. You got to go for it on two every time. Fine. The other problem is the options out there are very limited. I mean, I think the class of it right now is probably Young Koo, who is coming off an absolutely dreadful stint with the New York Giants that ended in him driving his foot into the ground on a field goal attempt that was pretty bad. And it's tough for Koo because went to the same school as Tyler Bass, had a lot of success there, had a lot of success in Atlanta before things kind of went off the tracks. A lot of people talking about Justin Tucker. And listen, there's a reason he's not in the NFL right now, right? And there's a reason he's only gotten one workout. And their accusations, and they're heinous accusations, Ryan. I mean, some of the things that were in the reporting around and they are accusations. So let's be clear about that. But I think that at this stage, putting that aside, right? And I have issues if what the Bills were to pursue that. We could talk about that, and I'd have to hear from Brandon Beane and the organization of the kind of vetting that they did in the process looking into that. There's a reason he's not in the NFL right now, but put all that aside. He wasn't very good last year.
Right.
Like, that's the big piece of it for me that I keep coming back to that makes me think it's not even necessarily worth it. I think that people are thinking about Justin Tucker circa 2021, 2022, when he was still one of the elite kickers in the NFL. He's not that anymore. So I think for that extra part of it, and do you want to invite, and whatever your opinions are on what the media circus would be, whether it's warranted or not, it will be a media circus if the Bills in week 1 of the playoffs sign Justin Tucker or even bring him in for a workout. It will be a national storyline that will be discussed on First Take and all the national talk shows. I don't know. I think bringing that all in to the mix it's I don't know.
No, I know it's a challenging scenario for Buffalo right now because Young Hoku, he was brought in on December 23rd along with two other kickers for a tryout. Maybe all three of them come back, maybe just a few of them. There's other players out there. Matthew Wright, I think, is someone that we've discussed potentially being available that could kick for the Bills. So there are options, but we are talking about early January. The kickers that are available right now are on the market for a reason. You're not going to generally get a top-notch kicker at this point of the year, no matter who they bring in. So it's an unfortunate situation. They're going to Jacksonville against a kicker that has the biggest leg in the league and is a real asset in Jacksonville. So, the Bills were kind of already at a disadvantage. No knock on Matthew Prater, but in terms of the distance kicks, the accuracy that they have there in Little, it was already a little bit of a mismatch. And now if they do have to bring someone else in, it just leans that much more heavily in the favor of Jacksonville in this game in terms of the special teams and the kicking situation.
Some of the other updates here, Jordan Poyer trending in the right direction, as is Daquan Jones and Terrell Bernard. I'm not rushing Terrell Bernard back. I think you go into this game with Andreessen, Dorian Williams, Shaq Thompson, and Matt Milano, and you feel good about that foursome. If he's still I wouldn't feel comfortable even entertaining the idea of Bernard back on the 53 or on the active 48 until he is full practice participant all week. And then maybe you consider running him out there in that third linebacker role. But what's hard about that, Ryan, is you have Dorian Williams playing at a really high level right now. And I think he's really important to their pass rush, to their blitz packages, and how Sean McDermott and Bobby Babich can devise ways to get him involved in the rush. And I mean, this week, I think a guy like Dorian Williams comes into focus as a really important weapon. Everybody talks about the 17 touchdown passes that Trevor Lawrence has thrown over the course of the Jags' last 10 games. They won 9 of them. But to me, it's the scrambling ability that really has you concerned. And I think that's one area where Dorian Williams is going to help you in this game.
Yeah.
Shaq Thompson is going to help you in this game. Matt Milano is going to help you in this game. And that's an area where I feel that Terrell Bernard has struggled.
Bernard has had a very rough year, and I don't want to pile on the guy. We've talked about the injuries he's had all season long. I think he's tried to play through it. It just has been ugly. It's a throwaway year for Bernard, and I don't think the Bills can get out of that contract. I think maybe you kick him outside at linebacker, try to come up with something different for him in 2026. But for this year, you go with the guys that you have. Dorian Williams can really be an asset in terms of spying or having the athleticism to keep his eye on Trevor Lawrence, because as you mentioned, Lawrence has the ability to take off and go. He's been dynamite the last 8 weeks or so. Truly, if you're just looking at that last section of the season, I would put him right up there with any MVP candidate. So he's been playing unbelievable. The Bills are going to need a great game plan to keep him in the pocket. They're going to need to be really good on the back end, which they've been very good in terms of pass defense all season long. But there's going to be plenty of challenges for the Bills in this matchup.
So I think Poyer is probably trending in a really good direction.
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's limited or maybe even full on Wednesday. The Daquan Jones one is something that it feels like this calf thing is going to be something that lingers. And I think we can get all the way up until Sunday, and the Bills are going to have a hard decision on their hands, depending on what they can do with their roster. Are they going to be elevating Dane Jackson as a boundary backup cornerback? That's one piece of it. Are you going to need special teams guys elsewhere? How many receivers are you going to activate? Who's going to be the kick and punt returner, excuse me. It's probably going to be Khalil Shakir, right? That'll take care of that. But I think that Daquan Jones, if he's not, really close to 100%, you can find yourself in a situation where you feel comfortable going with the 2 rookies, Mathis, Ogunjobi, and Jordan Phillips.
I think that certainly makes sense. They've had some. Fedarian Mathis has been really good after a very rough start. He has been so good.
You were talking about putting your hand up earlier in the show. I got to put my hand up because I was critical of Fedarian Mathis, and he is he has made me eat my words on those first couple of games. The Bills saw something, obviously was practicing well. He's been really good the last couple of weeks.
And it's funny because I guess you need patience with players, especially players that aren't familiar with the scheme, the system. Because when he first came in, it looked like a liability waiting to happen. But you're right. Each week he got better and better. And now it's like, do you even want this guy off the field in terms of if everyone's healthy with the rotation? He's playing that well. So I think the Bills will be okay if Jones cannot go. One area where Jacksonville is not great is in terms of running the ball. They're not a team that pounds the rock or has a lot of success doing so. So I think the Bills can get by, especially in this matchup, if Jones is dealing with that lingering calf issue and they can't play him in this game.
All right, so this is the one. David Trelizio, favorite former kickers for those in the comments. I'll start Steven Hauschka. That's the move. Go out and get Steven Hauschka off of the couch. He is the kicker version of Phillip Rivers this year. You go, I mean, I think Josh Allen saw him at a game maybe late last season. They had like a social media moment. Get Hauschka off the couch, have him come in here. He could probably still he's probably still a good 40 and less. He could definitely hit extra points. Go get Steven Hauschka. It is the year of the, I don't even like the word retread. I don't like that. Like going back into, going back to your former players. And I don't know if he could still kick the ball. I kind of say that tongue in cheek, but that would be an interesting move.
Yeah, I mean, Hauschka, obviously not, but maybe there's an older kicker out there looking for another opportunity. There are guys out there that the Bills haven't looked at it yet. They can look at some UFL kickers. Now I'm blanking on his name, but he was drafted the same year as Tyler Bass by the Colts. Glasses, I can picture him in my head, and now I can.
Oh yeah, is he in the CFL?
No, he was in the UFL, and he pretty much won their special teams player of the year award. And he does this thing every year where he takes the best kicks of the week and he Blankenship, Rodrigo, thank you. And he does them himself, and he's been great with that. I'm at least surprised he hasn't been brought in for a workout or a tryout. This game is not going to be in Buffalo in the elements, so maybe you are more inclined to at least give him a shot here, knowing this upcoming game is going to be in Jacksonville. You're going to likely be on the road a lot in the playoffs. So there's another name I would throw into the hat. I know he has no ties to the Bills, but Rodrigo Blankenship is a player that I've been at least impressed with watching him kick on social media and how he performed in the UFL last year.
The last piece of news today, the Bills are not opening the injured reserve practice window for any of their players. So Ed Oliver, that is still going to be a wait and see kind of deal. And, I got the sense even when we talked to Sean last week that that's going to be something that probably pushes somewhere into the AFC Championship week and maybe even beyond that. And I always thought, we heard him talk about right after surgery, he was posted on social media, Oliver, and that was like, let me get back for maybe the AFC Championship or the Super Bowl. I can't remember the exact comment. So that was always in the back of my mind as like the target date. Mm-hmm. With the knee injury, that probably, if it was going to be the AFC title game or maybe even a week sooner, it's probably going to be pushed back a date. He's not in the mix, but I think you could be in a worse spot. I mean, that position group, I feel like, has really stepped up in a big way. And I think you feel good about what's there and available to them right now, even against an offense as good as Jacksonville's.
Right. Yeah. There's no Ed Oliver in that group in terms of everything he can do, but they're getting contributions. Deanne Walker's been unbelievable all season long. TJ Sanders, first sack of his career against the Jets, really, I think he's popping now that he is getting to play just defensive tackle, not playing out of place. We talked about Mathis. We've talked about Phillips making some splash plays here and there. They have some talent there on that depth chart. So they can certainly get by with the group that they currently have. But, man, what a boost Oliver could potentially bring if the Bills are still in the conversation come AFC Championship time.
We got almost 2,000 people watching here live on a Monday night. No Monday Night Football, Ryan. This is like one of the weird parts of the schedule, right, where the anticipation starts to build, but it's so ingrained in the schedule that I'm just like, I'm getting ready at about 8:15 to get to a TV and put on Monday Night Football, and there's nothing there for us.
Yeah, no, I guess that's the I wouldn't say the beauty of the final week of the season, but you want to make sure your playoff teams are getting the same amount of rest as everyone else. So just kind of the nature of how this works. But man, oh man, I think we have 2 college football playoff games, one Thursday, one Friday. Then you get into the Super Wild Card weekend on Saturday through Monday. So there's going to be at least 5 really good days of football on the horizon here.
Joe Brady talking today had a interesting little nugget of information about like the approach that he took with Josh Allen last week. And it was something that he didn't do in week 18 last year. He did it this year for the first time, where it was going to be Mitch Trubisky getting all of the reps last week. The plan was to play him. And I think with the injury, it was always going to be go out there, take one snap, and then it's going to be Mitch Trubisky. And so because the Bills don't have a third quarterback, I mean, Mitch Trubisky was doing his usual backup duties, and then he was taking all the first team snaps as well. So Joe Brady instructed Josh Allen to basically go back and watch cut-ups of his season, something that they usually instruct players to do when seasons end. Like they basically give them homework to go and watch all of these plays. These were your good plays. These were the plays that you didn't do this, you didn't do this. And all of that is kind of broken down for the player. Well, Josh Allen got a chance to do that this week. And this came up when Joe Brady was asked about the sacks that Josh Allen was taking and the fact that they're going to be going up against a team with one of the best pass rushers in the NFL and Josh Hines-Allen, and what the Bills are doing to maybe mitigate his potential impact on this game. And, I think that there's a lot to be said for Josh Allen getting a chance right before a huge game on the road against the Jags to take a step back, take a deep breath, and really dive in on the details over a 2-week period to self-scout right before you do the team scout to get ready for what you're going to face in the Jags. I just thought that was an interesting bit of information, and it kind of places a different lens on Josh Allen this week and maybe what we could see from him against the Jags.
Yeah, I love that they did this because Joe Brady has taken a lot of criticism, and a lot of it rightfully so, in terms of the woes of this offense, their inability to play strong for 4 straight quarters and everything else. But Allen has been far from flawless or without fault this year. There's a lot of underneath stuff that he has missed, holding the ball too long where he could have dropped it off, taking unnecessary sacks. So having the opportunity to sit there and watch those plays and say, oh man, I missed Jackson Hawes, underneath on a play where I fumbled it, turned it over, and that ended up getting points for the Eagles. I could have dropped it off to this player, but instead I ran around, took a bad sack. That's going to help him. Whether, I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to be flawless against Jacksonville now, but it's a good in terms of taking that step back and saying, okay, there's a lot that I've missed. And then you can watch the good as well. So it's fascinating because I think going into this game, it's really good. You mentioned Josh Hines-Allen, Trayvon Walker is there. They've started to put those guys on the same side of the defensive line, and they're finding some success there. Guards are getting pushed back on a regular basis with that combination on the same side of the defensive line. So the Bills are going to have to be prepared for that. I know they're not great overall in terms of sacks and pressures versus the rest of the league, but they did start figuring something out here late. So even, when you start scouting the other team, that's something that Allen's going to be fully aware of. And he's going to maybe have okay, I'm going to have to drop it off to player X, Y, or Z in these situations when pressure's in my face and not try to do too much.
You're going to do a lot, probably too much this weekend, Ryan. You're driving up from Olean on Friday. Yeah. We're going to do a live show at Wingnuts Buffalo, 4600 Genesee Street. Our January live event at Wingnuts. It is going to be an impromptu. Listen, the Bills are probably not going to play home throughout the whole playoff. So we had to get the January show in. So we're doing it this Friday night at Wingnuts, and we're giving you 5 days notice. So please come out to Wingnuts. Let's get that place rocking on Friday night. Ryan's coming up. We'll do Bills Jags preview show from Wingnuts this Friday night. We cannot wait. Then we're going to head out to Jacksonville. We'll go cover the game. We'll have you covered wall to wall from Florida on this game. And hopefully we can come back the following week and start getting into a divisional round matchup.
Yeah, let's hope so. We never want these seasons to end. We want to keep these shout episodes going almost on a daily basis come playoff time. So let's hope that Buffalo has a good performance, and we're back here again this week at this time doing it all over again.
Before you go on YouTube, do us a huge favor. Hit that like button, subscribe as well. We're on the move. I think we're almost up to 17,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. We really appreciate everybody's support, all of your awesome comments during every live show. We really appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow with the BKL Makes Me Want to Shout Staples show on Wednesday. We're putting some things together. I'm actually going to be appearing on Mitch Morris's podcast later in this week. A huge roundtable with Jacksonville's beat reporter from ESPN, Mike DeRocco, I believe his name is, and that's going to be a fun time. So for Ryan Talbot, I am Matt Parrino. Ooh, David Trelizio. Do we do a Zoom session while we're traveling, Ryan?
I would love to figure out a way to make that
Insiders?
work, because we need to do that with the insiders. We're going to be pretty busy, but I
You're
bet we can
right.
make
It's been
work.
too long. Let's do we'll do a Zoom with insiders maybe Saturday when we're traveling. We'll put that together. We'll put something out. And if you want to be part of that, it is gloves are off. Everything goes. We're just basically sitting around the campfire telling stories. Insiders only, 716-528-6727. Become an insider right now. It's 2 weeks free trial. Only $3.99 a month after that. We haven't pushed that price up at all, Ryan. We want it to be as cheap as a cup of coffee. Cheaper than a cup of coffee every month.
You've been to Starbucks or Tim Hortons lately? It's cheaper than a cup of coffee, and you get it for a full month.
All right. For Ryan Talbot, I'm Matt Parrino. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Take care.